Welcome to CyberSundhed, or should I say Cyber Hope. This is our first podcast in English. It's still about technology, it's still about cyber, it's still about health, when technology meets the human being. And today we have Subhi Irshed, who is an entrepreneur, and you founded My Mental Wellbeing, MMW, which is focusing on helping people into a healthier life in the 21st century, this very digital world. You're a dynamic person, you have a lot of stuff written from LinkedIn that I have here, but basically you want people to learn new skills. So let's learn together now.
Let's do it.
Welcome, Subhi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So, what's on your mind right now?
I think we had some really kind of nice warm-up conversation. So I'm just excited to be here, and thank you for having me as the first guest in the English version. Hopefully that will bring even more reach and impact, because I feel like we are people who want to create impact. That's how at least I think about myself and others who inspire me. I think, you start doing that by having a healthy impact of yourself, within yourself, because that's the best gift you can give to others, is a healthy self, right? So, yeah. So
if you want to change the world, you need to start with changing yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's the mission, right, in a way.
The MMW, you founded it.
Correct.
And we talked about if you want to change the world, you need to start by yourself. So why did you start the MMW?
Yeah, I think it was definitely something that is about starting with myself. And it started in 2019, I think, in October. I deal with loneliness. And I've come to learn that it's not something that will ever go away, but it's more something that goes on waves. So, in some waves you feel it's stronger than others. And it started just with me kind of, coming home and feeling lonely, I would say. And it was quite interesting because kind of from the outside in this kind of curated society that we've built thanks to technology. And I'm being ironic around thanks here, just to make it clear. I think, of course, there is a very upsides of technology, but I think there is unintended consequences to technology that now it's picking up, and I think that's a big reason why we're having this conversation.
Yeah,
but just back to my story, like I was doing really well at that time. Like if I look at the criteria of, kind of socially, I have really good friends and connected to them. Have a good job. I just ran my first half marathon. So I was like, what's going on? Like, come on, man up, this toxic masculinity. Come on, you can take this, right? So I did try to take it for a couple of weeks. I was like, okay, let's just give it some time and see if there is something, if it's just going to be shaken off, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it didn't really. And then I felt like, I think words and articulating your thoughts is a way also to invite others to the conversation and to feel better. So I wanted to talk about my loneliness and the challenge I'm facing. But I had both of my managers, really good people. Actually, they have been mentors and inspiring people, which I feel I'm very lucky to have them early in my career. But I still felt afraid to talk about mental health on my Facebook, ironically at the time, because I felt that they will think, there is stigma around mental health, right? They will think it's about stress, about the project I have, which actually give me a lot of thriving and satisfaction. So I was in this kind of dilemma, like, what do? I want to address it, but I'm afraid to address it because there is a lot of stigma around it, and then it might be misused against me, so to speak, right? So then I was trying to be practical. I was just trying to look into some tools to help me address my loneliness, and I couldn't find anything relevant and accessible to me. So anyway, long story short, after a couple of weeks, I was like,
before we move on, how do you define loneliness in your mind?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's harder to articulate, right? Like mental health in general, it's intangible. So it's difficult to articulate it. And that's why talking about it and having a language is important.
If you should put a few feelings on loneliness.
Yeah.
What feelings are related to loneliness?
Yes. I would say it's a really like intense feeling of being on your own, like you cannot you feel in a little bit hopeless to describe how you're feeling, because you don't think someone else will understand your that kind of set of emotions. And it's also because it's a bit harder to describe that emotion, which I think back to why language and articulation is important, because if someone describes something that you weren't unable to articulate, they can inspire you and they will help you that way because they were able to articulate it. So they put a word into a feeling and you're like, oh, I can associate with that. And then you build on it, or you don't, depending on the articulation, right? But I think it's really interesting because I have, in the best part of my life, I felt lonely. And on moments that were on average, I felt lonely. And it's really, now I'm reflecting on it actually first time, but I think when I had the lowest point, like when I'm disappointed or frustrated, I don't feel lonely. I feel more like, oddly enough, I'm very focused on being determined to get out of the situation. So good question. That's a one to take with me, but I think it's...
but isn't that the point? That's what we need to articulate.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of, I think it's a spot on. So,
I would say that it's not a, let's say it's a happy feeling or a sad feeling.
Yeah.
I guess it's a sad feeling.
Oh, definitely not a happy feeling. Yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. I mean, I guess maybe in my head I wanted to be more into like, other layers of, but definitely it's not a feel good feeling, right? Exactly. Because you feel on your own and you feel like, I mean, hopeless is, I think, how I said it. And I think that's not a place you want to be in, right? Because and it's probably in your head. Yes, you decide it's hopeless, but it's not really, because, that's why people share, I guess, with each other, and having support system is important, and having access to community is important, because sometimes you share and others can, inspire you and guide you with their own wisdom of their experience, or sometimes just by listening, it also makes you feel better, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's why I'm very forward coming around it, because I think especially men, okay, maybe I'm not gonna say that, but
go ahead.
No, it's because I cannot really quantify it, so I'm not gonna kind of make it about but maybe historically I think it comes that emotions have been labeled more for women back in much maybe further down the line. I mean, in some societies it still is, and for men, you provide, you're strong, the toxic masculinity we talked about, you don't cry, so you don't address your feelings. So I guess the more you go in that path, the faster track to loneliness I think you would feel, because you feel trapped, you can't address it, so you just feel on your own. And maybe that goes when they say it's lonely at the top, and it's because you
were on the top at that point in your life. You were doing great. You're running.
Yeah,
you were having a great job. You were on the top.
In I guess in a certain definition.
In a professional way,
for sure. For sure.
Maybe in a physical way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, yeah. So I think that's for me my story of how like it started with MMW, and then I decided to say, okay, no, I'm just gonna talk about it. So I addressed it in a way that I remember this. I wrote a status on Facebook saying I'm looking to assemble a team of 5 people to look into the mental health trap that young people fall into due to the perfect Instagram world that has been created, where everything is perfect and all this unexpected, unrealistic expectations and all of the jazz maybe that. So
that's what you did at that point in time when you started it, and you mentioned Instagram already then. Exactly. Because so you had an idea that Instagram had an influence on this.
Yeah, because the period between this making the status and reflecting on my own loneliness and trying to find tools that help me, I was just reflecting on my behavior driven by the technology, by mobile application, by social media. How when my dad was young, or when he was 20, he had at best he could compare himself to his cousin or second cousin or
his neighbor,
his friends, right? Yeah. I compare myself
to the world.
to the whole world. I'm comparing my first chapter with someone else's 20 chapter, right? So I'm of course set up for failure here. I'm setting up for feeling less like lower self-esteem. So I just started realizing at the time Instagram had this explore. Now they have moved on from that, but I guess it's different ways. But it's does the same thing, meaning you can check other people who you don't follow.
Oh,
You know,
okay. Yeah.
so and there you can compare yourself to 100 people every day. So that's what we call it, self-comparison at a scale.
Yeah.
And on LinkedIn, you do it professionally. Oh, your friend got promoted, or this got promoted,
Yeah.
or this, and then you're just feeling of you're never enough, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's what social media did. So, back to the point, I started realizing, okay, when I put a picture up, oh, I like this picture with Jakob, I'm taking it, it looks cool. If I put it up and I don't get 20 likes in the next 5 minutes, I start feeling self-conscious.
Yeah.
Was it good? I'm anxious. Should I take it out? And I know people don't feel comfortable saying these things because you're being vulnerable and you're showing that you care to be validated by others. But that's by design. This is how our brains are done. And that's why our brains are designed to survive and not to thrive.
Mm-hmm.
I took this course at Yale called The Science of Wellbeing.
Yeah.
I would recommend it. Like my kids will have to do it,
When they're
like,
ready.
Yeah, exactly. That's I always, correct.
Yes.
When they are ready.
Yeah.
But the psychologist, she was talking about how your brain is designed to survive and not to thrive, which means your brain is not designed to make you happy, but to make you live.
Yeah.
To be happy, it's on you. You have to do a lot of the work. And that's why a lot of people are not happy, because working hard is hard.
Yeah.
And not everyone is willing to do it. And that's everyone's choice. But I think that's not the life I want to lead. And that's not the life that inspires me. And I want to inspire people around me. So, so back to the point is that we're being put into applications and new reality, we call it the connected world, that is designed to be addictive, which means makes it even harder for you to pull away from it. So you need to put to build healthy habits and mechanisms that works for you, because what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. But the more we talk about it, the more we can get inspired and use from each other. So self-comparison at a scale, instant gratification, getting the likes, getting the notification, they all play with your head, with the dopamine. I'm sure you have heard it so many times already in the podcast, because it's
but not in English.
No, exactly. So you guys are welcome.
Thank you, Subhi.
Anyway, so all of this basically makes you vulnerable, and means that we have all these new stressors to our mental health. But the supply, the resources and support and services that can help you bounce back is not there. And that's what happened to me, right? I felt lonely, I felt vulnerable, but I looked for accessible and relevant tools. I couldn't find anything. And that's MMW mission.
Yeah.
That we say that today's resources and mental health toolbox is outdated. It's trying to solve problems of yesterday. I'm interested in the problems of today.
Yeah.
And usually, when there is proactive and reactive to solutions and policies and toolboxes. And I understand it that a lot of people, for them to invest and spend time, they want to wait for the data-driven decisions, right?
Yeah.
It's every tech company's
Science,
slogan.
evidence, yes, exactly.
And I think we had that talk, me and you, a little bit. I think I was a bit emotional there. I was like, it's interesting how I reacted. But I think now I'm a bit more calm. So I'm just going to say it maybe in a better way.
Yeah.
To me, of course, statistics are important. And data is important. But data comes from people. And when I talk to 20, 30 people around me, they're all young, from different generations, different backgrounds, and we're all having the same problems. I don't need to wait for a statistic from Harvard to tell me that social media is bad for me, or mobile applications are bad for me, or the dating apps are really ruining us, because we think there is never-ending supply. We have this illusion that I can match with everyone, but we all know we don't talk to anybody, because it's an illusion that people are available. And that illusion is created by technology, and they're playing on our emotions,
Yeah.
So I don't need that to make me move and do something about it. And I think that's how MMW started. And then we started right before COVID. Of course, COVID helped us a lot because it brought the conversation front and center, especially for workplaces. But within 6 months, we had 23 members, volunteers on the organization from all over the globe. We had from Tokyo, Peru, Bangladesh, India, Middle East, Europe.
How do you got in contact with all these people?
Online.
Online?
Yeah, word of mouth.
Yeah.
You say,
Yeah, in the virtual world.
Truly,
Yeah.
truly, exactly.
Yeah.
And it was like...
So that's good.
I think the timing was kind of right.
Yeah.
You know, even though
Right.
I do take pride that it's not about COVID. This was hitting us eventually.
Yes.
COVID just accelerated it and made other generation understand that, because what set up millennials and Gen Z from the rest is our consumption to media and our adoption.
Yeah.
We were doing it much more, you know. Now my dad is on TikTok. I mean, that's when you know it's over, you know, like...
Let's just hold on to that thought because in the beginning, MMW, that was millennial mental well-being.
Correct.
But there's going to be a change.
Correct.
Because now we have a new generation. We also have an old generation.
Correct.
So you've changed it to my mental well-being. But first, before we go into that, you started with millennials.
Correct.
And now you see a change.
Correct.
So please define millennials. Please define some of the Gen Z and why now it's not millennials, but my. So what's the difference?
Absolutely. I think to begin with, millennials are people born between 81 and 96. And Gen Z born between 97 and 2012. So the reason it started as millennial, which I think a name that a lot of Danes hate, for some reason it's very difficult for a Dane, even the most sophisticated. I mean, I've been around some good ones. It's harder for them to say millennial mental well-being.
It is.
It is just, I know.
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
different, difficult to articulate.
Correct.
Millennial mental well-being.
Yes.
You have to concentrate.
Truly. Yeah.
Gen Z is still much easier.
Yeah, that's true. Too bad I was like,
boomer.
I was born in the wrong generation.
But you're a millennial.
I am a millennial.
Yes.
I'm like we call them like, because we had to also split the millennials. There is the more mature
Why do we have to
millennials.
put people into those categories?
Because the reality is that you are shaped by the exogenous factors, which are political,
Which
environmental.
factors? You said some factors.
Exogenous factors, so factors that are from the outside, right? So when
okay.
you were born in the 91, how was the economy?
Yeah.
How was,
No worries.
how was the, all the like environmental, societal, economical, these kind of factors, they shape your experience, your parents' experience, and that experience shapes your traits, shapes what you care about the world. We were born just in a different time, and millennials were unique, or are unique. We are a bit, we're becoming older eventually, you know. But
fortunately,
truly, actually, right? Aging, it is a privilege to age. Anyways, but we are, I think, I was calling it fit for purpose as a generation, because we have had childhood without, you know, MSN and, you know, like computer were just coming around, right? Like in 2000, I was 9 years old. And then we also did the shift where we're online, we're the first kind of movers into Instagram, Snapchat, and all of that jazz, right?
Yeah.
So, which means we can understand both worlds, and then we can curate for something that provides balance, because I'm not here to say let's go offline completely, but I'm also not here to say what's happening right now is not right. And then, of course, there is a path to go why governments need to step in, why the business model is racked, because basically all these mobile applications are based on clicks, and clicks are based on advertisement. So when there is no subscription, you're paying by your data. We all know that, but it means when you design, you need to design for addiction. You need to design to keep people in the loop, because
design
that brings
for like
exactly because that brings advertisement. Advertisement brings money brings investment, and we go like this. And that's why I believe that we need to there's many layers to how we address this, but government will have to step in. They need to change the business model, you know, because they can regulate tech companies and the way they're doing it. So,
but they don't have any evidence. Oh, of course they do. I'm just kidding, because when we talk about evidence, they need evidence and they need statistics before they can go regulate. You can't regulate up front, so to speak. You need to see some kind of statistics, some numbers before you go regulate it. But
I think
we're getting there.
I think we're getting there, and I also disagree with that approach. I think you can be proactive and forward-looking government, and for Denmark, I definitely expect us to be in the forefront of this.
We should, and
we are doing it more.
But I think we're not.
Yeah,
I actually think that we're old-fashioned, and the way that we look at it from a governmental point of view, just taking ChatGPT and all these things coming out. What should we do about it as teachers using that in the schools? Nobody knows. Yeah. They don't know how to address it. They don't know how to address these technologies when they emerge so fast. So the governmental way of doing things and getting things into the parliament and talking about approval of the rules and changing rules, everything is too slow if you compare it to the technology. Yeah. So I think, but we're getting there. That's actually the most important point right now.
Exactly. And I think it's like right now I'm in this phase where I'm comparing it to ESG. ESG like climate, right? It started the climate problem, then we kind of articulated.
What does ESG actually stand for?
Environmental, social, and governmental.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And so basically that's kind of to talk about climate.
Yeah.
And then they articulated into ESG, and then there you have the 17 goals of the UN.
Oh, yeah.
And then one of them, of course, is around health. Number 4, health and well-being. So I think I truly believe that in the next 10 years, we will have to come into a place where all workplaces will have to report on well-being index of their employees. Mm-hmm. And then we can, of course, talk about why workplaces have to step up and why they need to reshape. And I think maybe that we can have that a bit later in the conversation. But definitely government has to step up. Insurance companies, I mean, that's also another way for government to do that, right?
Yeah.
You put legislations on and then insurance companies have to do it. We were talking about this earlier.
It's kind of the whole economical system needs to follow it somehow.
Absolutely.
We need to change that because we have to fight, let's say, the other economical part that actually earns a lot of money on this one.
Absolutely.
I want to grab on to one thing that you said because you're a millennial. So you basically said you understand both worlds. Mm. That's kind of saying that the old guys like me, we don't understand the new world. Yeah. And it's also about saying Gen Z might not understand completely the old world. Yeah. I think it's kind of beautiful that you're in the middle. Yeah. So I guess that's what in your mind that you can connect the two.
Yeah.
Maybe, that's maybe why it's my
It
mental.
was, sorry, I didn't answer actually the question. I'm just going left and right here.
Go ahead and go left and right. That's okay. I'll try to grab all the thoughts and get back.
You're doing great. Now, so the answer was the reason why it was named Millennial Mental Wellbeing, honestly, because I just came up with the name of, I just wanted, when people read it, they get what it means from the get-go, right? The reason why we called it Millennial at the time was because simply we were trying to find a solution to our own problem. Like, I just wanted to help myself and help my friends. Sense. This is how we started, right? Yeah. And then, of course, 3 years later, looking at data, because it is important, and it's just not to be misunderstood earlier. I mean, there are different phases of everything. Mm-hmm. Certain things, sometimes you need to step up when it's really an urgent situation. To me, you just need to act. Sometimes that people act on their gut feeling or whatever you want to call it. But to me, it was like, I know that what's happening is not right because I can feel it on myself. And I can talk to a lot of different people who are different than me, from personality, knowledge, reflections. Countries, cultures, right? Like at MMW, you have 23, like we are completely different from each other. Right?
Are they all millennials or has that?
We have Gen Z now.
Yeah, I would imagine, of course.
And we also had some others. I mean, we have a board and the board are all
old people like me.
Baby boomers. You're not old. No. More mature, let's put it this way.
I like that.
So that's why, the reason why it was millennial at the time. And then 3 years later, we also we do a lot of surveys. So now we have like 10,000 data points from young people, workplaces that we worked with. And we realized that there are a couple of shifts that we would like to address as an organization. And I believe our job is to evolve with the environment around us.
Sure.
So the reason we moved to MY, which was just a cool, I think, idea of first keeping the brand, so MMW stays, and then just replace Millennial, which is the hustle big world, with MY, where anyone can say my mental well-being. It's very inclusive.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. See, it just took me some years, I'm just such a youngster, it took me some years, some hits on the faces every time, and now, like, why just millennials? And also we learned that Gen Z, who are the upcoming workforce as well, they are dealing with mental health stressors just as much, even more than us, which makes our mission even more relevant because it's not going away, it's actually intensifying. So because we had a lot of Gen Z in the team, I was like talking to people around, was like, okay, we need to reflect that on the name. Like the name now is becoming a problem. In the beginning, it was serving us. Now it wasn't. So it was
now
this,
it's limiting. Yeah, exactly.
for sure. So that was the first shift, focusing on everybody with providing for mental well-being for everybody with a crystal focus on millennials and Gen Z, because that's our specialty. Like that's, I think, what sets us apart from everybody else actually out there who's focusing on that. And the other one is that we also learned that leaders in the workplace are struggling just as much as their we call them individual contributors, so just like all the other employees. And with the interviews we did with them, we also realized, okay, they themselves don't have any education and training on mental health for themselves first. But the definition of a leader is to put other people's needs in front of your own. But how can you put other people's mental health in front of your own if your own mental health is in danger?
Yeah.
You can't take care of others if you can't take care of yourself, what we started with, right?
Yeah.
And leaders are people.
Yeah.
So that's why the second shift is that we focus on both providing solutions for all employees, but also to specialize on leaders. How do they have a mental health conversation? It's a very delicate topic, right?
Very.
And
Very
it's
difficult to articulate as well.
Absolutely.
Loneliness is not only for millennials, it's for Gen Zs, it's for my parents. The older you get, I guess that you're sitting home alone, maybe in some cases being lonely. So loneliness is my thing, not a millennial thing.
Absolutely.
And I think the leaders, of course, they can be lonely as well.
Yeah.
They are on the way to the top as well, right?
Yeah.
So they might be heading for something and getting lonely that way, especially if they don't act morally good around their colleagues to get there.
Absolutely.
That's a different. It's kind of a different story, but still.
I think it's very much connected, like with psychological safety, right? Because if you don't have the psychological safety downwards and upwards in the organization, you're gonna be lonely, because a leader is also about filtering out what you say and what you share and who do you share it with, right? So you don't overwhelm your employees. And if you don't have psychological safety to talk to your manager or to talk to your side colleague, you end up on your own, right?
Yeah.
And
maybe that idea
lonely.
I thought about the psychology part and the safety when you're at work.
Yeah.
And when you go to work, you might bring some of the thoughts that you get from social media there. So you're afraid to put things out there because you're afraid of not being cancelled, but being put in a situation where you're online being disgraced or you're put down or something like that. So from my point of view, looking at that, I think the time spent on social media doesn't help in the psychological safety when you go to work. If you're used to getting crap online, you might take that into your work. And you're sitting. I'm afraid to say this because I don't want to get into a situation where I get crap from my employees or my colleagues.
You will 100% take it with you to work, because that's the whole point of why there is no work-life balance. There is no work and life. You have one. You have one life. You have one head.
So that's a big difference between the mature people, myself, and the Gen Z. Yeah. I think that's the main difference because. And I want you to talk about it because we had that discussion. And the first time I met you was when you had your first MMV in Copenhagen. And I was really surprised when I heard this run around. We always called it work-life balance. You need to be able to separate the two. So that's the philosophy and the professional idea from the maturity, the mature people working. You see it differently.
Absolutely.
From a Gen Z point of view. And I didn't see that point. And I think that's a very crucial concept to look into. So please explain why you see it so much different than it's a work-life balance. Yes. It's different from Gen Z point of view. And why?
So what we champion is something called life balance. And I, of course, totally understand. And again, that goes back to why we label, or like why Gen Z, why this, why that. Because baby boomers and boomers, people before millennials, they were raised in a time where work and life were completely separated. We even say it's a luxury. We don't have that luxury anymore, because back in the day, you will be able to work from 9 to 5. Once you leave the office, your manager cannot even get to you, even if he wants to, because maybe there was no phone for everyone, no mobiles, right? No mobile phones. And of course, later on, mobile phone came around, laptops came around, but still till it hit a mass, which means when a technology or a device is available to everybody.
Yeah.
It took maybe the last 5-6 years when like all companies started like providing you with laptops and devices, blah, blah, so you can do your job, right? But that also had a downside to it. It means you're always connected. You're always reachable. So that's kind of, at the time, life-work balance is a mantra that HR or people and culture, now they're called people and culture, at the time HR, they came up with a brilliant idea because it reflected the time back in the time where the structure was very different. Right now we live in a different structure, even before COVID. But now with COVID, with hybrid, remote, flexible working, you're always on. You're never actually offline, you know? And even when you're relaxing with your friend, right? Your manager or next deadline is 2 clicks away from you all the time. This is a new added stress that was not on my dad, because my dad, even if he wanted to, he couldn't get to it. So then his brain just eliminated it.
Yeah.
Where for me, it's in my head. So it's on me and my mental health toolbox and my healthy habits to say, no, this is my private time and I earn it. And I shouldn't feel guilty about not answering my manager at 10 p.m. at night or not working at 10 p.m. So that's one of the elements of why we believe that work and life you cannot separate them anymore. And that's why we believe that to be able to champion life balance, workplaces have to rethink what is a workplace is. And is my responsibility still to this time to take care of my employees only between working hours? Or I have Jakub working for me. I have to look out for him holistically as an individual. The reason why, because the better he's doing as an individual, the more he's going to thrive at work. You know, that's from an employer win-win situation.
Yeah.
It shows statistics by Deloitte in 2017. It shows for every pound you invest in mental health, you get 5 pounds return on investment. So even the numbers are there to support that. And that's from an economical kind of cost leadership perspective, you know.
Yeah.
Then you have also the other element of differentiation. Younger people are more interested, they prioritize their life differently. They want to have well-being as their first priority.
Yeah.
And that is a key differentiator between when they choose between which employer they would go for. That wasn't there back in the day. Now we want more, so to speak,
Yeah,
right?
we do.
And you can judge it, you can say no, yes, no. But if you don't, you know, I mean, if you think about it in simple terms as like in sales, right? You always say you need to understand your customer to be able to sell.
Yes.
You need to understand the generations that's coming into the workforce to be able to sell yourself for them to buy you and work for you. Because if you don't, someone else will. And then you will have no talents to work for you. And what will happen to your bottom line? Right? And in the other end, the cost of sick leave is so expensive for workplaces. It means someone has to go on a sick leave. You need to find a replacement until that person is up and running to deliver at the same stage. That's huge cost to your bottom line.
Yeah.
Right? So there is the differentiation, attract, invest in better well-being and mental well-being for your employees, because you can attract the younger one, but also from a cost perspective. You can do it because it's costly to have sick leave and burnout.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an easy win, so to speak, in my mind at least. It's clearly not in everyone's mind, even though we can see huge shift right now with workplaces, of course, trying to step up. But that's what we're trying to say. To move from work-life balance to life balance, workplace have to step up their role. How do they do that? Is by rethinking how they view their employees. From 9 to 5 to a holistic person.
Yeah.
I take him in completely. And some bits will fail.
Yeah.
It's not our responsibility to make other people become better people. It is our responsibility to create the conditions for them to choose to become better people. But without the conditions, we will not be able to help them. We need to help them help themselves.
Yeah.
That's your responsibility, because what are we optimizing for? in general, in workplaces, we optimize for money. But for what? To have better life eventually. Like if you think at it from a GDP, gross domestic product for Denmark or like countries, right?
Yeah.
That's how you grow your economy.
Yes.
Is to have a better quality of life. But if we have better quality of life, what kind of better quality of life will you have if you don't have better mental well-being? Because without mental health, there is no health, right? So it all loops together.
Yeah.
And from MMW perspective, on the human aspect, it's our responsibility to look out for each other. And not because we are amazing people, because we're selfish people.
Mm-hmm.
I want to help me.
Survive.
Yeah, by helping me, I want to thrive, right? I survive and thrive, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge shift also. I'm reading this book called Mind Wandering. It was recommended to me by another guy called Jakob. He's a journalist at Politiken.
He's been here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I say hi to
Mr.
him.
Zornfree.
Could be. I can't remember 100%.
Look up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Look up. That's our guy.
Sorry,
right?
you were telling something about it, that he recommended that book.
Yeah, exactly. And he's, because it's for an Israeli author, so that's kind of the conversation came.
Who is he?
Ben. No, we'll have to look it up.
We will look it up.
Yeah, and then it will come to you guys.
Is it called Mind Wandering?
Mind Wandering, yes. And he's a neuroscientist, and he talks about how there is a shift in general in humans' outlook to life.
Mm-hmm.
Before, people were just okay living, kind of. Now they want to live life, like get life out of living, if you know what I mean. Like they want to get the best out of it. So before they were enough just busy being busy. It's okay, this is life. Now, no. Everyone wants to optimize the best out of their life, right?
Yeah.
And that's maybe a good aspect of the change that we have. But if we don't do it in the right way, how can we do it if we are always on our phones, if our mental health is stagnating and all of that? So that's a big reason for why I think we need to move from work-life balance to life balance, because it's a one life and you can't separate both. And that's okay, because that's where we are now. It's just we need to also create the right policies, the right investments, the right language. Everything starts with language.
Yeah.
Because that's what forms all the decisions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the story. I love the whole idea that it's life and it's not work life. It really connects also to the spiritual part of living, taking that into your work. People didn't care about that 50 years ago, that you had a spiritual journey when you were working.
Yeah.
You were just working. You had to get things done. It was the industry. It was a different time. Now it's, we've moved on to, so I guess my parent wanted me to be able to handle myself and be able to earn my own money so I can buy a house and I could do all this. I think what I think that my child should be able to do is to thrive. Yeah. Because they will not have problems with surviving in the future, not because of wealth and work. Do they even have to work in the future? I don't know. Yeah. That's a good question. But anyways, it's life. It's not work life. I want to say one thing, and that what hits me when I was at the conference that you had, and that was, well, if we need to go this direction, you're actually going into an old discussion where you take employees that are experts. They develop and they get up the hierarchy and become managers or leaders. No, incorrect. They become managers of their department because they have the skills to do the work good. They have no people skills. There are so many people in my generation that are managers that has never been on a leadership course.
Absolutely.
And any sort of kind. And I remember when I started with these leadership courses, I've been on a few, actually a lot, but it was you can manage 12 people. Yeah. That's a maximum. Yeah. When I first thought the idea that you have to look at your employees as a holistic person and not only from 8 till 5, I thought you can't manage 12 people then. It's too much for you. So first of all, you need to take care of yourself, as we talked about. So don't be lonely yourself on your way to wherever your journey is. And then at the same time, take care of 12 people in your team that needs to be psychologically safe in the team. 12 people, getting those people together, be safe together. People are different. My point is that you don't have the skills to do it as a manager or a leader today, and you have too many employees if that's going to hold on. I don't think that it's possible. But, and again, if you do the ROI, the return of investment, it's a good investment. But I think my point is you need fewer employees and you need more education to be able to do this if you want to do it successfully. And you need to understand a lot of things about mental health. I even think that you need to understand a lot about cyber or the technology so you understand what it does to your employees. And then you agree on some that boundaries might be the wrong word, but the setting that you said, that you put up some settings that help people help themselves. And you need to understand how technology works and how culture works in life, not only at work. But that's a huge change.
And I'm like, it's funny because we didn't talk about this. So the way you're shifting this to where it's perfect because it writes up to what we are trying to do now with the upcoming campaign that we have on the World Mental Health Day on October 10th. And what we're trying to do basically, and just before I actually jump in that, what I just want to say, you're spot on this. And that means that we need to upskill our leaders. And my prediction is that in the next 5 years, all leaders will have to have a training on mental well-being and the well-being of their employees. And that's the thing right now, why leaders are struggling, because they didn't know what they signed up for.
Exactly.
Because now they're being asked to look out for their employees, but they cannot even look out for themselves. And how could they? Mental health has been a hugely taboo topic. Understanding yourself, because as we said, workplaces, they just personal, professional, you separate. But you can't do that anymore. So they have a gap and they are in an imbalanced situation. And that's why we think that what we are doing as MMW and as many, many others are doing is very, very important to sustain ourselves as humans, sustain ourselves as economies, as nations, because it all starts within you. And the trainings will also be that they need to get to know themselves better so they can know other people better and lead their team. Yeah. So I think it will be something that workplaces have to do. And it's something I can tell you, we are in conversation with many different companies that would like to do that. Yeah. So we can see that there is an uptake on it. Yeah. And my prediction that will be a must-have avenue for any leader in the future. Yeah. Next to your skill set and competencies, you will have to have that kind of training. And then it's for you to choose if that fits you or not, because to me, that's my ultimate goal in life is to inspire and be inspired, because it's a loop. And maybe not everyone want that, and that's okay. But then not everyone is meant to be a leader either, because you can be a manager, but to be a leader is a different thing,
Agreed.
And you need to sometimes just have managed expectations, right? And just say, this is what I'm able to do, and this is what I'm not able to do. Either way, it's a responsibility of the institution. In this case, institution could be a government, could be a workplace, could be parents, right? Institution change, but in this context that we're talking, it's a workplace. Yeah. And it's their job and their responsibility to educate, train, and equip their managers to be able to reflect the new changes in life. And that's what we talk about also in the video that's coming out about the new reality we live in, which you beautifully put, right? It's about understanding technology and what it does. Yeah. And we need to be living in a world where we can address the challenges that we're faced with in this new reality without feeling ashamed. Yeah. So this is what's going to come out on October 10th for MMW. We have created a pledge that is a mental well-being pledge. It's an initiative led by young professionals together. So important to say, together with other workplace decision makers. Yeah. Those are line managers, people in culture, C-suite, everyone. There is no generation. It's about improving the workforce well-being. Yeah. It's to help workplaces shape the future of work by making them rethink and taking care of their workforce well-being, mental well-being, and not just viewing them from 9 to 5, because that's the biggest shift.
I think it's a beautiful thought. And I've been working for some time with organizations on strategies and new ideas, call it whatever. But if you want to change your strategy and want to go into having a pledge and change the whole organization, you know what they say, culture eats strategy
for breakfast.
It's going to be difficult to change that culture.
Exactly.
And one example I want to give on that one is you talk about it being a taboo. I'm not even sure it's a taboo. I think so. Why don't we talk about it? That's kind of the in my head. Why don't we talk about it?
Yeah.
I think we don't know how to articulate it.
Exactly.
So I don't even think it's a taboo as something that I don't want to talk about, because I think I don't know how to talk about it. So it's not even like, it's important to say that
it's definitely an element of it.
It's an element of it that where you could argue that it's a taboo because you don't know how to talk about it, and if you start talking about it, you get into something where you get vulnerable and you don't know how to address it.
Yeah.
Exactly the same that happens when you talk to your kid about something you don't know about, like the technology on Snapchat, and you get into something where you get vulnerable. The point is that if you are a line manager, and it's just so much easier to measure your employees on numbers. You deliver this, if you're in Deloitte, whatever, it's so much easier to just focus on the numbers that you need to deliver based on your competencies, your skills, and what you do.
Like the KPIs,
and this is what I do as a manager. So I can make things work. That's my manager stereotype way of working. I don't even want to bother with all the mental health. I just want people to go to work, be a good place before they work, and then I don't know how to do it, but I do know how to execute. Yeah. So I wouldn't call it toxic masculinity, but that's just the way, that's the thing we know.
Yeah.
So and that point,
that's
and how do we get to the point where, well, slow down, take it easy, take a look at your employees and see the thing that you're doing, how it affects them. Look at yourself. How are you doing? Yeah. How do you engage? Let's say mindfulness, mindfully with people, understanding them, getting the return of investment, the time that you spend of actually doing mindful work where you get things running beautiful together as a team.
And I think they're not mutually exclusive, right? You can do both, I think, because we can engage in a meaningful conversation. Actually, the research shows that and the statistics, it's just like, it's actually gonna tenfold on the execution. Yeah. But I think it's because we only know this. We're comfortable with this. So we continue to do it.
Yes.
And we're coming in, we're challenging that. And she said, it's difficult to change culture. It is, but that shouldn't stop us from doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Maybe it will change eventually.
It will change.
Because that's
we are
way
determined.
Of the world.
This is what me and you are doing today. We are already making changes because we are helping people articulate. We're talking about it. We also have concrete ways forward to how to push that ball into that other side.
I think this is really philosophical, but it's going to happen anyways.
Exactly. It's inevitable.
But it's going to happen, and it's going to evolve, even though we're sit here talking about it or not. But maybe we can help it.
Yeah, we want to be part of it, right? We want to be. Yeah. We want to. We want to play our role, right? We started with saying impact. We want to make an impact in the right direction. And I think it will happen, and that's what we're trying to explain to boomers and baby boomers who are sitting on all these boards and making decisions for our future. We're trying to say, we're going to change this with or without you, but you can be part of it or you cannot.
And it's not
you can delay it or you can actually accelerate it. So it's up to you which part of the history books do you want to be in.
Exactly, and it's going to change. It's not because that somebody is doing MMW or anything like that. You're part of the journey, you're part of the change, you're taking a stand and having your role in that journey, in that life. Yeah. And people maybe there will be some older than me or somebody that doesn't care about it will just say, I don't care because I'm going on a pension anyway. And they will say, well, that's okay. It's going to happen anyway. I'm just not going to take part of it because I'm a different place in my life. Yeah. But we are in a situation where we want to take part of that. And I think we have a purpose. Your purpose was you had your own loneliness. You thought other people have this. I'm on a journey where I'm thinking, okay, I have actually not the Gen Z because they're a little bit younger, my kids. But so I don't know what the generation.
I think it's Gen I.
Gen I.
Yeah, I think so.
That might be
can't
true.
catch me on it, but I think so. We can fact check it.
The point is that my thing in this is also, of course, sitting and seeing what's happening to the world. But my concern is what happens when my kids are the new Gen Z going out to work.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
We have no idea how it will look in the future. We have no idea what the skills needed would be.
No.
Do we even need people skills, or we just get ChatGPT to be kind and mindful to the employees, and you can just sit back and have a drink? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you can't imagine. But right now, we're in the middle of that journey.
That transition, it's absolutely.
And you transitioned from millennials to my. And I think that you talked about a video.
Yes.
And sometimes when you and I sit and talk, we already feel like friends here.
We are.
But the point is, sometimes when you talk about things, maybe a video
Can
or
help.
a picture can explain it much easier.
Yes.
And you have the video. It's not been launched when we do this recording, but we would like to share it.
Yes, it will be publicly available on October 10th. So if you're listening to this, you can go to YouTube and write My Mental Wellbeing, where that takes you to our YouTube channel. And we're at this stage where we're not sure yet what we're going to name the video, because we want it to be something short and communicates what it means. So maybe you guys in the room here, you and the amazing team that you have with you, maybe you can also inspire us and help us. What should we name the video?
Before we then go and watch the video, how would you explain the video? How would you introduce it?
I really don't want to do that. The reason why, because I really want, like right now I'm in this stage where I want people to have their take on it.
Yeah.
And then maybe I can give it one word, but
please
because maybe if someone's listening, one word is a problem. Maybe one sentence, but I think it's the story of every person who's living in today's world, with a focus on the younger generation. But I think it's all of us in this video, I think, and it took a lot of work to I mean, now I'm setting the bar high, which I didn't want to do, but let's watch it. And I think we've been trying to be brave to tell a story that a lot of people, and I showed it to some people in workplaces, like, yeah, but we can't tell our employees not to go on Instagram. And I was like, this is what you got out of this. It's not what we're trying to say, but you tell them or you don't, they're gonna go on Instagram. Do you want to help them or not? Do you want to be part of the change? Because we need help. And that's okay. It's part of it, saying that we need help. It is to do it. So let's watch it. I'm really looking forward to hear also what you guys going to say in the studio.
I haven't seen it.
No, I know. Yeah. So I'm really excited.
Young professionals face a mental health crisis due to constant online presence, fueled by social media and mobile applications that are designed to be addictive. This combined with hybrid and remote work, where work email notifications never stop buzzing. Young professionals end up being anxious, stressed, and overstimulated. As mental well-being triggers increase, accessible and relevant well-being support and services remains limited, especially at work, where 84% of young professionals have experienced burnout and stress symptoms because of their job.
How are you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm great.
Imagine a workplace that prioritizes mental well-being, understanding the new reality we live in, empowering us to embrace our challenges without shame. Picture having a manager who supports not only our professional growth, but also provides us with mental well-being coaching. This is MMW Mission: to break the stigma by helping workplaces prioritize their employees' mental well-being through concrete well-being toolbox and science-based techniques. Our approach is based on 10,000 data points from young professionals and workplaces.
If you're a young professional like me, be part of the movement.
Join us in making mental well-being take center stage at work.
I am signing the pledge. Are you?
Let your voice be heard. If not for you, then for the rest of us.
If not now, then when? If not us, then who? It's time to take concrete actions to start looking out for the next generation of young professionals.
Only together, all generations, we can make it happen.
United, all of us can make it happen. I'm signing the pledge. Are you?
What spoke to you? Is there anything that you could resonate with?
Yeah, sure. So there's two things. The first thing is the data points, but also the simple one in contrast to the data points, to the 10,000 data points. So Subhi, how are you doing?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the idea in my head. At some point you have the evidence, you have the data, you have all that. But why don't you just ask, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And get the answer.
Which?
So how are you doing? How are we doing?
Yeah. And
a name for the video. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
Yeah. And the ironic thing, right, is that you don't get the real answer, right? That's what the video is trying to show, that we say we're good, but what went through his head, he's overwhelmed, he's overworked, he's tired, he's overstimulated. But hey, I will say I'm good. You know why? Because I don't trust that if I say how I'm feeling, I'm going to be listened, I'm going to be heard, you know? And the same with the manager. She also had to cancel going out to yoga, taking care of her physical health, because there is a global meeting. And she was going out with her friends or on a date, and she got a message saying, HR stress meeting, one of your employees is going on a stress leave, right? And then she goes in, and then she goes like, how can I help my team if I can't help myself? Which is very much the message I've been kind of talking to you about, right? And then the other part is to bring that hope, to say, hey, let's not give up. Let's do something about it. Together we can do it. And that's what the pledge is about, is that we all pledge as individuals and also as a workplace decision makers to pledge for a better tomorrow, so to speak. So, yeah, I'm glad to hear.
Good video.
Yes.
Really good video. I also think that it had a workplace focus.
For sure.
So it's broader than workplace, right?
Oh, 100%. We gotta focus somewhere. That it was because we deliberate. I think completely agree with you. I think the conversation is much bigger than workplaces. Yeah. But workplaces is a sweet spot.
It's a part of life that it's huge.
Exactly. We spend 90,000 hours in our lifetime working. 90,000. We spend 8 hours a day, roughly, in whatever form you work right now, working. Yeah. That's why we focus on workplaces, because by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. So initially that was kind of the main focus, right? But the conversation goes to, if you can ensure that you have mental health support toolbox, something that can help you identify your stressors, work with yourself, be better throughout these 8 hours a day, you are in a much better state than not. So that's why we focus on workplaces, you know. So it's bigger, larger. That's why we also talked about government, school. I mean, I wish they taught me how to regulate my emotions. You know, how is it to have online and offline personality, you know, persona, right? Yeah. How do I deal with that, right? Like all of these things. But how could they have done that? At least for my age, it wasn't even there, right? Like when I was in school. But now we need that. So I had this conversation with a friend of mine. His dad is a principal of a big school in Nazareth. That's where I come from. And it was a bit heated, the discussion, in a good way. He's a great guy. And we were like, dude, you need to tell your dad that he needs to start reflecting, you know, the school program. It needs to reflect that, the changes, right? It's not just the math that matters. No. You know what I mean? So,
I know what you mean. Yeah. And I think I also had a conversation, not heated, but... By the way, we need more heated discussions because that's where the feelings get out there and we talk about the real stuff instead of just being careful. I had a talk with somebody also around school, and, you know, they're just sitting and waiting for the government to tell them what to do. Yeah. Even though that some of the things are, in my mind, obvious, we should start doing. Yeah. But coming back to the idea that the government is too slow, I think the point of doing this in work is actually good because companies can do this without...
Private.
Yeah, they can do it privately. Yeah. So it's a good place to start. And if you can tell the story about the economical benefit. Unfortunately, we have to put that in there, but that's just the way it is.
You need to create win-win. It's not about creating just, because that's how workplace came into place for us. Because originally it was just me and my friends, we want to talk about it, right? But then I had to find that other win for workplaces, because you sounds great, like go find someone else to do it, right?
Yeah.
But then that's where COVID helped, because you also had to go from control to trust, because you can no longer control your employees. You can no more say, this old misconception, hours spent equal productivity. Stay in the office till 6 p.m. That means you're a good employee. We were all raised. I mean, I'm sure you lived most of your life on that element, at least of the workplace. My upbringing in the workplace was like this, and it's all, of course, bullshit. I mean,
it's old stuff, because when you were working at the factory, it was making sense, right?
Exactly.
But now we're not in the industrial revolution. We're in the digital revolution,
and you could still how late that's picking up, right? So it's just to say the transition will take time, and that's why I expect the well-being index, workplace well-being index, to be in place in 10 years.
Yeah, the new CSR.
Exactly.
Yeah, human CSR.
Exactly.
We've talked for an hour.
Yeah, and time passes so quickly.
It does, and it has been really good. It has, and thank you for taking not only me but also the listeners on the journey. And as an end to this podcast, of course, we need to make sure that people need to sign the pledge. Mm-hmm. Is it for everyone to sign the pledge?
It is for everyone.
Yeah,
it's for everyone, and we intentionally did the pledge in two ways: young professionals, so individual. Yes. As an individual, what can I do? Yeah. You have 3 bullet points to make it so easy. Build the courage to have conversation with your inner circle, friends, colleagues, family. It starts by, how is your mental health today? If I come today and I say, how are you? Or I say, how is your mental health? You're going to get 2 different answers, I promise you. And if you don't, you're going to leave that person reflecting, which is a great starting point for awareness. Yeah. The next bullet for individuals: go to your workplace, to your institution, ask, what is the mental health investment that's being made? You're pushing...
Or even mental wealth policy.
Yeah. Like what just push the conversation, right? Yeah. And the last bullet is to try to help create sustainable workplaces that actually reflect on today's reality, which is about life balance, not work-life balance. Then there's the other side. If you're a workplace decision maker, if you're part of that institution and you have power, prioritize the well-being of the workforce. Look out for the future generation, because that's all we have. I mean, I'm also already thinking about my kids in 5-6 years. Yeah. And I don't even have them. So it's just natural way of being,
Yeah, it is.
The second step is to create and invest in employees' mental well-being, because you can. If you're a people and culture, you have rights, you have authority, do it. And the third is, that's how we create healthier societies. So it's from individual, institution to society. That's how we have built it up, so everyone can be part of it. So I really hope that people will take the time. We optimize it to be in and out of the pledge within seconds, because we know we are all being busy. Yeah. So we want to, respect that, so to speak. So please sign the pledge. Sign the pledge.
Thanks, Subhi. We're going to end the podcast with that one, because you so beautifully ended with the purpose of the pledge.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. And
thank you for having me. It was a blast.
It was.